Be going now. For some reason, it's freezing up on me. There, at least the image is. I don't see an image back. If any of you out there are seeing everything the way it should be, I'll continue. So somebody send me a message that we're running. Hello, Jill. Can you see me okay? Norma, can you see me okay? Everybody can see me. I can't see myself, but who cares if I can't see myself? If you guys are seeing me okay, then I'm going to go ahead and start. So I wonder if there's anything wrong with my camera. Okay, we're on the second part of chapter 8, which is on astral projection, traveling in the spirit vision, and or real magicians eat quiche. And the first part that we read yesterday was a brief little review of the astral plane and astral projection and things like that. And we had gotten to the point of where I was talking about the classic terror of the threshold and the fact that the lower astral plane is so close to the physical plane that if you happen to roll out into the lowest section of the astral, that you're actually in the graveyard of the astral plane, and hence the tradition of the terror of the threshold in classic visions. When we're tired, oh, excuse me, that's where we picked up yesterday. The dramatic terrors and ordeals that candidates of ancient mystery schools were required to undergo during their initiation ceremonies illustrated this frightening yet ultimately harmless fact of spiritual life. Because this area is so close to the material plane and the solid coordinates of waking space-time consciousness, the bodies that populate the cemetery of your threshold are literally those that are hanging around your neighborhood. That's why so many of these bad dream experiences seem to include situations dealing with neighborhood bad people who, to all dream appearances, are attempting to violate your home or your body or your loved ones. 9 out of 10 of my terror of the threshold projections find myself trying to chase away neighborhood vandals, or get this, and please forgive my political incorrectness of my subconscious mind, deranged homeless people who are attempting to get in my house. But in the metaphoric reality of this plane of consciousness, that's exactly what they are. Homeless bodies who are no longer animated by a living self, drifting in obedience to the laws of cosmic osmosis toward a realm, my house, that's inhabited by an abundance of living. These astral zombies mean no harm. They mean nothing, because there is no self inside to provide them with an intent. But boy, they scare the living daylights out of you when you stumble into their world. A moment ago, I mentioned that I'm not very good at consciously entering into an out-of-body experience. I think I should probably rephrase that to say I'm not very good at consciously leaving my body unless I've first gorged myself to near unconsciousness on my wife's spinach or broccoli quiche. It is with no small measure of embarrassment that I confess that even though I came of mystical age in the psychedelic 60s on this planet, even though I have at one time or another in my 62 years experimented with a cornucopia of mind-altering substances, even though I have labored to control my breathing with pranayama, fasted for days on end, even though I've chanted myself to socially acceptable insanity and engaged in magical rituals that I would never dream of describing to your mother, the strongest, most powerful drug I have ever consciously ingested for the purpose of driving myself out of my physical body is Constance's homemade broccoli or spinach quiche. I must point out that this dish is not necessarily dangerous to anyone possessing a modicum of common sense and self-discipline. It has, however, challenged the resolve of many a strong-willed magician. And unless you have actually inhaled its savory perfume and laid eyes upon its fluffy, buxom filling spilling over the thick, flaky fringe of rich shortbread crust, unless you've actually slipped a warm forkful of its buttery ambrosia into your watering mouth and felt the living soul of cream and butter and eggs and scallions spiked with nutmeg and a dozen other spices, and Swiss, Parmesan, and cheddar cheeses explode inside your head, then, my friend, you have no right whatsoever to ridicule the weakness of others. It is a dish to die for. In fact, on one occasion, a dear friend of ours actually suffered a massive heart attack within a few hours of his feast of Constance's spinach quiche, an event that required immediate triple bypass surgery and months of recuperation. I'm happy to say he recovered completely and has reassured us on numerous occasions that the experience was worth the memory of the quiche. Is it any wonder that a weak-willed and insecure glutton such as myself succumbs to the demons of intemperance whenever I'm confronted with an entire spinach or broccoli quiche during a quiet dinner for two in the privacy of my own home? The particular out-of-body experience I'm about to relate took place 5 years ago, following one such quiet dinner. I must hasten to point out that at that time of my life I had been abusing my body with a litany of bad eating and drinking habits, crimes against wisdom, as the Ayurvedic folks would call it. I had allowed myself to grow to nearly 300 pounds. It was not good. I'm happy to say that since then I've lost more than 100 pounds and am feeling better than I've ever felt in my entire life. At the time, however, my weight made sleeping quite challenging. It was great for lucid dreaming and astral projection because I was often tossing and turning in that twilight world between waking and sleeping. But it was terribly frightening when I realized that many of my colorful nocturnal adventures were kicked off by suffocating effects of sleep apnea, and that my astral projections could probably be more accurately described as near-death experiences. Still, this season of my life was characterized by a rich assortment of out-of-body experiences and led to my ability to control and direct the circumstances of my dreams and projections. I wish I could say Constance was as excited about my astral adventures as I was, but I can't. In fact, they were often rude and terrifying interruptions to her sleep. She usually knows that I'm outside my body before I do, because I almost always roll over on my back and stick my left arm straight into the air. I have no idea why I do this. But whenever I do, she wakes up and grumbles to herself, "Oh no, he's out of his body again. I wonder when he's going to make that noise." The noise that she dreads is a phenomenon that occurs when my astral body tries to speak. Or rather, when my physical vocal cords try to vibrate to the speech impulses coming from my astral body. When I open my astral mouth to say something, my physical mouth back in bed makes the most grotesque and hideously frightening noises. I mean, in my astral body, I might try to say, "Well, hello there, how are you today?" But my physical voice goes, It's not just a whimper either. I let out a monstrous groan as if I were the most tortured soul in the deepest pit of hell. It's very loud. I can hear myself and often wake up. It's so loud that Constance is sure our next-door neighbors must be terrified by the sound. I feel so embarrassed. I always think, why can't I speak? Why am I making these horrible noises? But instead of shutting up or trying to wake up, I always try again, harder. That's when Constance has had enough and she jabs me in the ribs with her elbow and yells in my ear, "You're out of your body again. Wake up and go back to sleep. And put your arm down." I don't recall what the occasion was. Perhaps it was a birthday or an anniversary or just one of those days Constance was careless enough to innocently ask me, "What do you want for dinner, dear?" And my answer, of course, would be, "Broccoli quiche, please." So the day began of heroic kitchen gymnastics that would give birth to the mystic meal. The quiche itself was made in an oversized pastry dish, not a pie plate, that can easily serve a huge slice to 6 hungry people. It's not a thin little breakfast quiche either. The rich whipped filling fluffs up to nearly 4 inches. 2 of those pieces was entirely too much for one sane person to eat at a sitting. But it was so good that I begged for another. Constance reluctantly agreed and succumbed to the temptation of another slice herself. When we were finished, we'd eaten 2/3 of the massive pie. We were gorged and painfully uncomfortable. Constance began to serve her penance by cleaning up the kitchen and attacking the dishes. I moved to the computer and tried unsuccessfully to write. The remaining 1/3 of the quiche cooled on the kitchen counter. An hour later, we were both still groaning and holding our bloated bellies. I, of course, had a much bigger burden. The quiche had cooled enough to be wrapped in plastic and put in the refrigerator. which is exactly what Constance was preparing to do when the spirit of gluttony, most foul, whispered in my ear and counseled me that tomorrow the quiche would not taste nearly as good as it does right now. It would be a waste, a sacrilege, a crime. Sated or not, we should eat the rest of that quiche before going to bed. And that was that. Constance would have none of it. But she was too tired and full to argue with me. She went off to a hot bath, and I sat in the darkened living room and ate the rest of the broccoli quiche straight out of its baking dish. I went to bed too full to stay awake, too full to fall asleep. Constance joined me in a few minutes and fell immediately to sleep. Our cat, Luis, snuggled in his usual place, sandwiched between us. In a few minutes, I became too uncomfortable to remain in my physical body. I heard that crazy sound in the center of my head and felt the familiar electrical buzz. Then, without further fanfare, I floated out of my body on a sickening wave of pure butterfat. I should point out the fact that I did indeed know that I was in a projection. But I was extremely groggy and wanted very much just to fall deeply asleep and make this all stop. It seemed like I was heading toward that blissful realm when I heard a noise outside the front door. I rolled over to see if I could hear a bit better. Constance was thinking, "Oh God, he's rolled over. I hope he doesn't smash the cat." Luis the cat was thinking, "Oh God, he's out of his body again. I think he's laying on my back leg." Yes, it was clear somebody was trying to get in the house. I rolled out of bed and quietly crept out into the hallway. Constance was thinking, "Well, there goes his arm. He's out of his body. I'll get no sleep tonight." Luis the cat was thinking, "If he rolls over any farther, there won't be any room for me." I tiptoed through the living room to the front door. I peered out the window in the door, completely ignoring the fact that there is no window in our front door. And I saw 3 or 4 shadowy figures crouched on the doorstep. Suddenly I heard a noise behind me in the living room. One got in, I thought. I was right. As I turned around, well, Constance was thinking, "Oh, there he goes, rocking back and forth." And Luis the cat was thinking, "Ouch, damn it, that hurts. Why doesn't he just die and let me sleep?" Meanwhile, I turned around and I saw a shadow slip inside the large closet that forms the entire south side of our living room. Once inside the closet, the intruder slowly slid the door closed from the inside. It was a very spooky moment. Completely ignoring the fact that there is no closet in our living room, I stood still while I debated with myself about what I should do. Meanwhile, Constance said, "At least he stopped rocking. I wonder if he's breathing." And Luis the cat was snoring. It is at this point that I get completely caught up in the action. Part of me knows I'm projecting and or in a dream, and part of me doesn't. I start to weigh my options as if there were a real intruder in my house. I better be careful. Maybe I can somehow trap him in there and call the police. I don't have a gun or a knife or a club. What can I do? Then the thought hit me. I'm huge. I weigh 300 pounds. I can just fall on this bastard and crush him to a pulp. Constance was snoring. Louise the cat was snoring. I march over to the closet door and violently slide it open. Cowering in the dark corner is a slimy lump of blackness that looks very much like the character Sméagol or Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. I suddenly feel I have the power to terrorize this creature out of existence, or at least scare it out of my living room. I muster the most hideous face and swell my titanic bulk to monstrous stature to assure that my voice will billow with the thunder of 10,000 volcanic devils. I suck in an enormous breath of air. Constance is thinking, "Oh no, here it comes." Louise the cat, "God, he's blowing up. He's trying to crush me to death." "I'll crush you," were the words my astral body voice was trying to bellow. But all that could come out of my physical body back in bed was a blood-curdling Louise the cat knew for sure I was going to crush him to death. He clawed Constance, desperately trying to pull his back legs out from under me, and when he was free, his feet did not touch the floor until he was well out of the bedroom. I had awakened fully, and the realization of what just happened struck me as so funny that I began laughing hysterically. Constance says maniacally. She told me I scared her to death, but her main concern was that our neighbors must have heard and had the scare of their lives. We were both certain the police were on their way. What could be my defense? Quiche intoxication? Astral projection? Okay, the chapter ends with a couple bullet points here. You know you're out of your body when? You know you're out of your body when you feel a thrilling, tingling sensation in the pit of your stomach, heart, throat, or back of the neck. When you notice this thrill in a dream, it means you've made the identity shift necessary for an OBE, or out-of-body experience. Perhaps this has something to do with our chakras or psychic centers that serve as exits from the body. If you're lucid at this moment, you can fly or do most anything you can imagine. Ironically, the most difficult thing you can do when you find yourself in this wonderful state is to actually think of something fun and productive to do. So plan ahead. You know you're out of your body when forward or upward movement in a dream becomes difficult or impossible to continue. For example, you're walking down a dream sidewalk, walking upstairs, or driving or bicycling down a road, and you suddenly find your legs are too heavy to move, or the car or the bike breaks down. This indicates you are moving from a lower, slower vibratory level into a higher, more subtle vibratory level, one that your big fat dream vehicles can't enter. If you are lucid at this moment, you can stop walking or riding or driving and will yourself to fly forward, leaving your grosser body behind. You know you're out of your body when you experience forward movement that is interrupted by a curve, right-left turns, or spinning. For example, you're preparing to cross a street or move from one side of a room to the opposite side, but change your mind and move 90 degrees either to the left or to the right. When you step to the right or left, you are stepping out of your body or the current body you're in. Or you are driving a dream car or riding a bicycle very fast, and suddenly a curve appears that you are certain you will not be able to make. Or you dream you are spinning or dancing. The corkscrew effect is also a very common prelude to leaving your body. You know you're out of your body when you hear strange noises, bells, rapping, horns, hissing, thunder. Nearly every OBE is accompanied by strange noises that seem to announce the movement from one plane to the next. No matter what kind of noise it is, it always seems to be heard with something other than your ears. When you know you're out of your body when you encounter terrors of the threshold. Encounters with hideous beings occurs most often when, for one reason or another, you skip the dream transition and are roughly thrust from waking consciousness to an out-of-body experiences. These are seldom pleasant experiences. I've encountered these things when I've had too much to eat and try to sleep it off and roll in and out of an uncomfortable consciousness. Actually, I think I'm getting out of bed, but instead I walk right into the lower regions of the astral plane, which we have learned can be a pretty rough neighborhood. Warning: don't eat or drink in dreams, especially with dead people. Greek mythology talks of waters of forgetfulness that lure the thirsty new dead who once they've had a little slip, who lure the newly dead who once they've had a little sip fall into a slumber in which all memory of their past life dissolves. This is a real phenomenon of the astral plane. If you want to remember your experiences, do not eat or drink anything in an out-of-body experience. Especially, do not eat or drink anything offered to you by someone who you believe to be a person who has passed away, even a friend or a loved one. You may be biting off more than you can chew. And that's the end of Chapter 8. I still don't know whether I've had a successful broadcast here or not, but I'm going to end the live video right now, and I'll see you tomorrow for a new chapter. And I think you'll like tomorrow's chapter because it is on That's Not What Invocation Is About. I think you'll enjoy it. Bye-bye. Be good to yourself and be good to each other. Observe the curfews. And do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Goodbye.